John Leboutllier is a Republican former United States congressman from New York and a member of the Republicans for Integrity, which brings together Republican former members of Congress who seek to put country before party. He joins us now via Skype from New York State. Mr. Leboutllier, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Simply, it's great to see you again. We've had a few technical glitches in the last couple of weeks, which has kept us apart on the air, so I'm happy that it's been fixed.
Well, I'm actually glad that we have you again. Now, President Trump says by pausing immigration, they will help put unemployed Americans first in line for jobs as the economy reopens. Fact or fiction?
Mostly fiction, because he stopped green cards. Most of the people that are getting the green cards are people we need in the economy now, like nurses and doctors and medical technicians who obviously, our medical system is heavily stressed by the virus. So I think that's wrong. I think this is a political move to address what he thinks is a weakening among his Trump base. And every time he senses his political fortunes going down, he plays the immigration card. And I don't think it really works for him. The polling shows it's not working, and I don't think this will work either.
Well, I suppose then the jury is still out whether Republicans will be receptive to this. I mean, he wants to take advantage, some critics say, of the coronavirus to implement a long-sought policy goal of, barring more immigrants coming into the country. And, well, his critics obviously saying that he's being opportunistic in his tracks. But then some supporters think that he's using this as a trump card, excuse the pun, so to save his soul come the 3rd of November.
Correct. That's what he's trying to do, but it's not working. I look at all the latest round of polls that came out last night from Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Florida, and he's losing all of them in every poll. And nationally, the same number keeps coming up simply. Donald Trump is mired at 42% in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, nationally, and even in Florida, he's in the mid-40s. You can't get reelected at 42% as a president. In a two-way race, you need to be close to 50, if not 50%. And he's nowhere near it. And this is in the middle of this pandemic, which is a political opportunity for him to get the country to rally behind him. And they have not done that. He seems to have alienated more people than he has won over more people.
Well, the White House, Mr. Leboutllier, has also quoted some Democrats, like some senior Democratic leaders, such as the then President Barack Obama and Senator Bernie Sanders. He said that even Democrats and liberal pundits used to warn against mass migration and advocate for protection of American workers. He quoted Senator Bernie Sanders in 2015 as having said that you think we should open the borders and bring in a lot of low-wage workers? Do you think maybe we should try to get jobs for those Americans? He also quoted Barack Obama as having said that mass migration threatens to depress further the wages of blue-collar Americans and put strains on an already overburdened safety net. Do you think that the Democrats' sentiments at that particular point in time are now coming back to haunt them and then support President Trump's call against immigration?
No, I don't. And I don't think the majority of people support it. A majority of Republicans do support this move. The majority of my party today has become anti-immigrant. It's the exact opposite of 35 years ago when Ronald Reagan was president. He was pro-immigration and believed and said repeatedly that immigration is the future of the United States. And the Trump base, which is a minority in the country, but a majority in the Republican Party, they are anti all immigrants, illegal or illegal. They don't want more people coming in here. And it's a strain, simply, in our history that has been ongoing since the beginning of the United States. There was fear of Catholics coming in, fear of people from Canada coming in, obviously fear of people from Europe coming in, fear of Chinese coming in. Then it's nothing new, but we never had a president who took it and used it as the main plank of his presidency.
Well, it looks like there will be a jobs bloodbath in America, and reports are now coming in that about 4.4 million Americans have claimed for unemployment benefits. That's in addition to 22 million people in the United States who have sought benefits since the start of the coronavirus. Now, the trillion-dollar stimulus package that was announced much earlier, do you think it is enough to cushion these new figures? I mean, does the American economy, I should say, have enough shock absorbers to cushion the shock?
Well, it's a great question. By the way, we're up to 26 million today because another 4.5 million filed for unemployment was announced this morning. So 26 million people out of work. No, to answer your question. We have not. That money that they've spent, they're going to have to do more. And that is the tug that Trump feels, and I don't blame him for this, that the need to get the economy opened back up and put people back to work. Problem is, if you go back to work too quickly, the virus starts spreading more rapidly again, and boom, we start going back up the curve again. So it's a balancing act between, and I was just watching your news before I came on, and your president was saying the same thing. You're going from stage 5, I think it was, to stage 4. Same thing here. Has to be done in a measured way to make sure you don't start reinfecting people all over again, because the threat is to overwhelm the hospital system. Now, you have very few cases compared to us. We have, just alone in New York City, we've had 15,000 people die in New York City from the virus, 48,000 in America, and we're headed higher. And what is it? 863,000 cases confirmed in the United States.
So now that the cases are now getting out of control, nobody seems to be able to control the further infection rate in the United States. So do the calls for reopening the economy getting louder and louder, particularly from the Republican camp?
I'll tell you something. They're not getting louder and louder. There's a small minority group that is demonstrating wanting to reopen things. But the polling shows basically 80% of the American people, including of Republican voters, do not want to open until the doctors and scientists say we're ready to open. And so if I can't get 80% of people to agree it's Thursday today. So when 80% say we don't want to open too soon and we're not yet ready, that means they're not going to go back to work. They're not letting their kids go to school. It is not going to happen yet. We're not quite there yet. And ultimately, for you in South Africa and everywhere else, all of this is feeling our way along until we get a vaccine. That's the point where life can resume somewhat normally again, like it used to.
Now, reports are now coming through that U.S. intelligence officials are also exploring the option of, starting investigations with regards to the origins of coronavirus from Wuhan city. Well, I suppose then it would involve much bigger budgets, which the American government is quite constrained at this point in time. It's more like, applying Band-Aid on a gaping wound, is it not?
Yeah, I think that the role of the Chinese government, how they handle this virus, whether they created the virus and it inadvertently escaped, and then they lied about it and covered it up, that's all yet to be determined. They definitely were not honest with the world at the beginning of how bad it was in Wuhan. And I think the U.S. government is pushing this story because Trump never can accept blame for his own malfeasance and incompetence. So he is going, as this campaign ramps up now with Biden as we head towards November, Trump is going to, as we say, try to throw the snake onto China, and try to blame China for the whole thing.
All right, Mr. Leboutllier, we always appreciate your insights. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Simply. Great to see you again.
All right, likewise.